Story number 1. Echoes of the Damned, a Halloween Nightmare. 2001, suburban Texas. I remember that evening, the chill in the air and the warmth of excitement pulsating through us. Derek and I had decided to take a spontaneous road trip. The road stretched out before us, endless and inviting. The freedom was intoxicating. Just as the darkness began to wrap its cold fingers around us, an animal, a deer, perhaps, bolted onto the road. We swerved to avoid it, but our car skidded off into the woods, its headlights creating eerie shadows amidst the trees. The car was a mess, undrivable. We decided to seek shelter for the night. As we made our way through the dense woods, the whispering trees and rustling leaves made it evident that we weren't alone. We could feel the eyes of wild creatures following us. But fortune seemed to favor us when we stumbled upon a log cabin, nestled by a mountain river. Its warm lights looked inviting, but as we approached, I felt an inexplicable chill. We were greeted by an old man with a silver beard, introducing himself as Mr. Hawthorne. He lived there with his daughter, Lila, a local journalist. She was working on uncovering some mysterious events from the past. Intrigued by our story, they offered us shelter. While Mr. Hawthorne attended to our wounds, Lila shared with us a chilling tale. The area, she explained, was haunted by the spirits of a tragedy long past. Many years ago, there was a landslide near the mountain river that claimed numerous lives. Their souls, unable to find peace, roamed the woods, especially on Halloween night. Derek, ever the skeptic, laughed it off. But I wasn't so sure. The weight of Lila's words hung heavily in the air. That night, as the clock struck midnight, the haunting began. We heard whispers outside our window and fleeting shadows dashed past. Eerie apparitions appeared, lamenting their unresolved fates, reminding us that tonight was Halloween. Terrified, Derek and I decided to join Lila in her quest to uncover the truth about the disaster. Perhaps by doing so, we could free the trapped souls. Poring over old newspapers and records, we unearthed a horrifying truth. The landslide was no accident. It was a result of unchecked mining operations that the town's officials had turned a blind eye to. Armed with this knowledge, we decided to conduct a ritual, hoping to appease the spirits. With Mr. Hawthorne's guidance, we built a makeshift memorial by the river, paying our respects and promising to share their story with the world. To our amazement and relief, the apparitions began to fade, their haunting wails turning into whispers of gratitude. Dawn broke, and with it came a new understanding of the world beyond our own. We thanked Mr. Hawthorne and Lila for their hospitality and wisdom and made our way back to civilization. As Derek and I drove away, we couldn't help but glance back at the cabin. It was no longer just a structure, it was a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of truth and redemption. To this day, I can still hear the whispers of the lost souls, but they no longer speak of despair. Instead, they remind me of the importance of seeking the truth and standing up for what's right. Story number 2. Whispers of Wicked Woods, a Halloween Haunting. 2002, suburban New York. I can still hear the echo of our laughter, the thrill of our youth, as I recall that chilling Halloween night. It was supposed to be an adventurous trip with my two best friends, Sam and Ethan. A night of stories, mischief, and memories. We were in Sam's old car, cruising down the quiet roads, when an ethereal figure suddenly emerged from the shadows and darted across our path. It was a translucent apparition, a ghost, seemingly trapped between this world and the next. Startled, Sam swerved, and we veered off the road, the car coming to a jarring halt amidst the dense trees. The damage was apparent, the car wouldn't start. With darkness engulfing us and our phones rendered useless, we decided to find shelter. Carrying our bags, we ventured into the woods, our steps punctuated by the eerie cries of nocturnal animals. Soon, we stumbled upon a quaint log cabin, nestled by a gently flowing mountain river. As we approached, the door creaked open to reveal a middle-aged woman with deep, searching eyes. Beside her stood a younger man, a camera hanging from his neck, suggesting his profession as a photographer. The woman introduced herself as Mrs. Clark, a historian, and the young man as Alex, her assistant. They had been researching the area's history and had plenty of tales to share. Seeing our condition, Mrs. Clark kindly offered us shelter. As she treated our minor wounds, she began to share the cabin's grim history. Many years ago, there was a school on these grounds. However, a mysterious fire had consumed it, leaving no survivors. Their souls, it was believed, wandered the woods, especially potent on All Hallows' Eve. Ethan, who loved solving mysteries, got intrigued. With Alex's help, they started scouring old newspapers and documents. As the night deepened, the paranormal activities intensified. Shadows danced, whispers filled the air, and ghostly apparitions tormented us. Hours of investigation led to a shocking discovery. The fire wasn't accidental. It was a result of a feud between two rival schools, leading to an act of arson gone horribly wrong. The spirits, it seemed, needed the truth to be acknowledged to find peace. Together, the five of us decided to hold a small vigil by the river, acknowledging the tragedy and expressing our sorrow and regret. As dawn approached, the restless spirits began to fade, their haunting cries replaced by a peaceful silence. The next morning, with our car miraculously fixed by Alex, we bid our farewell to Mrs. Clark and the cabin. But we left with more than just memories. We left with a mission to share the story and ensure that such a tragedy was never forgotten. To this day, whenever Halloween approaches, I'm reminded of that night. But instead of fear, I feel a sense of pride and purpose, knowing that we played a part in putting restless souls to peace. Story number 3. The Shadows of Shivers Creek, A Tale of Haunting. 2003, suburban Los Angeles. The memories of that night are still fresh, etched into my mind with clarity that time hasn't been able to erode. My friends, Jason, Mia, Rachel, and I, were excited about a spontaneous Halloween road trip. The thrill of adventure, the anticipation of the unknown, all wrapped up in the spirit of Halloween. I was driving, the road illuminated only by the pale moonlight and our headlights, when out of nowhere, a wolf darted onto the road. I swerved in panic, causing the car to skid and crash into a tree. The initial shock quickly gave way to relief when we realized we were mostly unharmed, save for some minor cuts and bruises. But with the car in no state to continue in darkness all around, we had to find shelter. Gathering our belongings, we began our trek through the woods. The crunch of dry leaves underfoot, the distant howls, and the unmistakable feeling of being watched sent shivers down our spines. Emerging from the dense foliage, we stumbled upon a log cabin. It was old, its timbers weathered, standing tall by the mountain river, as if guarding a secret. Our relief was palpable when we were welcomed by its occupants, an elderly librarian named Miss Agnes and her friend, Robert, a retired detective. Agnes, noticing our injuries, immediately began tending to them, while Robert lit a fire, its warm glow contrasting the cold tales that awaited us. As the night deepened, Agnes began recounting the history of the cabin and the surrounding woods. Decades ago, there had been a settlement there, a thriving community. But a series of unsolved disappearances and deaths led to its eventual abandonment. The souls of those lost were believed to haunt the woods, and on Halloween night, their presence was especially potent. Skeptical yet intrigued, Jason and Rachel, with Robert's expertise, decided to delve deeper into this mystery. Poring over old newspapers, journals, and maps, they unearthed a horrifying truth. A series of sinister rituals had been conducted in those woods, and the community had been the victims. The weight of this revelation was heavy, but we knew what we had to do. Under Ms. Agnes' guidance, we conducted a ritual to acknowledge and appease the restless spirits. We promised to bring their story to light, ensuring their memories wouldn't be forgotten. As dawn approached, a peaceful calm settled over the woods. The spirits that once roamed in torment seemed to have found some semblance of peace. Grateful for our newfound knowledge and the protection of our hosts, we left the cabin the next morning, with Robert kindly offering to drive us back to civilization in his truck. To this day, the shadows of Shivers Creek linger in my mind. But instead of fear, I'm filled with a sense of responsibility to remember and honor the souls that once called it home. Story number 4. Sinister Echoes of Elmsworth Forest, a haunting memoir. 2004, a suburb of San Francisco. The serenity of that evening was deceptive. It was Halloween night, and my friend Martin and I were embarking on a road trip, seeking the thrill of adventure. But what awaited us was beyond our wildest imaginations. I was driving, with the mesmerizing panorama of the setting sun painting the sky. It was then that a rapid movement caught my eye, a deer perhaps, darting across our path. Panic-stricken, I swerved, causing our vehicle to skid, finally stopping with a jolt by the forest edge. With the darkness swiftly embracing the woods, and our car refusing to budge, we decided to venture deeper, hoping to find some shelter. The forest was alive with nocturnal sounds, and every rustle, every distant howl, felt amplified, like nature was warning us of the secrets it held. Amidst this eerie ambience, a dim light in the distance drew us to a log cabin by a mountain river. As we approached, the front door creaked open, revealing a middle-aged man with spectacles perched on his nose, introducing himself as Dr. Samuel, a historian. Beside him was a younger woman, Clara, an investigative journalist. Their kind faces seemed incongruous with the chilling atmosphere of the place. Samuel offered us refuge for the night, and Clara, noticing our injuries, swiftly brought out a first aid kit. As the night deepened, the two shared tales of Elmsworth Forest and its tragic history. Decades ago, an entire village nearby had disappeared overnight, leaving no trace. Rumors spoke of occult practices, but nothing was ever confirmed. Now, as Martin and I tried to dismiss these tales as mere folklore, the paranormal activity commenced. Ghostly apparitions began to manifest around the cabin. Whispers of long-lost souls, faces of anguish peering through the windows, and the sensation of being watched persisted throughout the night. Intrigued and terrified in equal measure, we decided to join Clara in our research, hoping to unravel the mysteries of the forest. Together, sifting through old manuscripts and Samuel's records, we unearthed a malevolent pact made by the village elders with an unknown entity. In exchange for prosperity, they'd sacrificed their future generations, leading to the village's doom. Realizing that acknowledgement and atonement were the keys, we held a candlelight vigil, apologizing and praying for the lost souls. To our astonishment, as dawn neared, the apparitions began to wane, their haunting cries replaced with an ethereal silence. Grateful to Dr. Samuel and Clara for their insights and shelter, we returned to our repaired car the next day. As we drove away, the once menacing forest seemed almost peaceful. Even today, the memories of that Halloween night in Elmsworth Forest are as vivid as ever. Not just as a testament to the supernatural, but also as a reminder of the dire consequences of our actions and the importance of facing our past. Story number 5. The Haunting of Everglade Hollow, Memories of a Lost Night. 2005, a suburb of Miami. That night still haunts my dreams. Halloween always held a promise of fun and mischief for us high schoolers, but that year, it became a chilling memory that I've carried for years. I was driving, with my best friends, Ryan and Sophie, singing along to our favorite tracks, excited for the evening. Everything changed when a ghostly apparition, looking eerily like a child, suddenly appeared before our car. Startled, I swerved, causing the vehicle to skid and collide with a nearby tree. With nightfall swiftly approaching and the car rendered useless, we had no choice but to seek shelter on foot. The dense woods of Everglades seemed endless. But our spirits lifted slightly when we spotted a log cabin by a serene mountain river. As we neared the cabin, the feeling of being watched grew. The distant sounds of wild animals kept us on edge. To our relief, the cabin was inhabited. The owner, a tall, rugged man named Mr. Ellis, a former Marine, welcomed us in. He lived there with Ms. Alara, an enigmatic woman who claimed to be a spiritual medium. The inside of the cabin was warm and welcoming, in stark contrast to the foreboding woods outside. As Ms. Alara attended to our bruises, she shared tales of the area's haunting history. Decades prior, a school bus carrying children had tragically crashed nearby, with no survivors. Every Halloween, it was believed the spirits of those children roamed the woods, looking for solace. With each passing hour, the paranormal activity intensified. Phantom footsteps echoed, ghostly laughter filled the air, and apparitions flitted past the windows. The three of us clung to each other, our earlier excitement replaced by dread. Intrigued and desperate for answers, Ryan, with Mr. Ellis's guidance, began to investigate the tragic incident. They discovered that the crash wasn't an accident but a result of the bus being tampered with, stemming from a feud between two local families. Alara believed that acknowledging the truth and holding a seance might appease the restless spirits. Together, we formed a circle, calling upon the lost souls, expressing our sorrow, and promising to ensure their story would never be forgotten. As dawn approached, the atmosphere in the cabin shifted. The spirits, it seemed, had found some respite. The next morning, Mr. Ellis offered to drive us back to town in his truck. We gratefully accepted. As we drove away, Everglade Hollow faded in the rearview mirror, but the memories of that night remain, a haunting reminder of the thin line between the world of the living and the dead. Story number 6. Echoes of the Forgotten Forest, a haunting in Orlando. 2006, an Orlando suburb. The weight of that night remains heavy in my heart. 4 friends, Lucy, Jake, Megan, and myself, had set out for an adventurous night. But as fate would have it, that Halloween night changed our lives forever. I was driving, lost in the thrill of our youthful chatter when a raccoon darted in front of the car. I swerved instinctively, the car skidding to a halt by the edge of the dense forest. With the car immobilized and darkness closing in, we ventured on foot, seeking refuge. The soft luminescence of fireflies guided our way, leading us to an old log cabin nestled beside a tranquil mountain river. Yet, something felt off. The surrounding woods were too silent, save for our footsteps and the faint rustling of creatures unknown. Our arrival at the cabin was met by its inhabitants, Harold, an aged archaeologist, and Serena, a local historian. Their warm welcome belied the chilling tales they had to share. The cabin and the surrounding woods, it seemed, were haunted by spirits of settlers who had vanished without a trace years ago. As Serena treated our injuries with surprisingly adept hands, Harold shared details of a grim discovery he had made. Unearthed artifacts hinted at a possible betrayal and massacre of the settlers by a rival group, seeking to claim the land for themselves. The horrors of the past came alive as night deepened. Whispering winds carried voices of sorrow, shadows flickered eerily, and apparitions made fleeting appearances, their faces marked with pain and accusation. The woods were alive with the souls of those wronged, especially potent on All Hallows' Eve. Lucy, ever the brave one, proposed we help these restless souls find closure. With Harold's archaeological knowledge and Serena's historical expertise, we pieced together the events of that fateful night. To make amends, we decided to conduct a makeshift memorial, paying our respects and acknowledging the wrongs committed. Guided by Serena's chants, we sat in a circle, candles illuminating the surrounding darkness, reaching out to the spirits. The woods responded. Winds howled, and the water of the river seemed to echo with cries of the past. But as dawn's first light pierced the horizon, a serene calm settled. The spirits, it seemed, had been acknowledged, their pain recognized. Grateful for Harold and Serena's guidance, we left the cabin the next morning, the weight of history heavy on our hearts. The woods of Orlando hold deep secrets, and that night, we became a part of its haunting tapestry. A night that started with adventure ended with a solemn promise to remember and honor the spirits of the forgotten forest. Story number 7. Whispers from the Ashen Woods, the night we never forgot. 2007, a suburb outside of Las Vegas. Though more than a decade has passed, the chilling events of that Halloween night still haunt my every dream. My friend Laura and I, in our spirit of wanderlust, decided to explore the lesser-known fringes of Las Vegas. I was driving, the neon city lights fading into the distance, when a coyote suddenly darted onto the asphalt. Startled, I swerved hard, narrowly avoiding the creature but hitting an ancient-looking signpost. With night drawing close and our car badly dented, we decided to look for shelter on foot. The stark desert landscape gave way to a surprisingly dense woods as we ventured further. The forest seemed untouched by time, with the soft murmurs of a river guiding us to a secluded log cabin. As we approached, an eerie stillness enveloped the surroundings. Our knocking was met by the cabin's occupants, Elaine, a soft-spoken librarian, and Derek, a geologist. Their initial surprise at seeing us turned to understanding as we relayed our predicament. While Elaine kindly treated our minor injuries, Derek shared tales of the woods and its grim history. Long ago, there had been a mining accident nearby, trapping and killing many workers. The souls of the departed, he whispered, had never left and were especially restless on Halloween. His words seemed to be validated as night fell. Unexplained cold breezes flowed through the cabin, ghostly miners' hymns echoed in the distance, and spectral figures could be seen wandering close to the river. Curiosity overcoming fear, Laura and I, with Derek's help, began looking into the cause of the disaster. Sifting through Elaine's vast collection of local records, we uncovered a shocking truth: the mine's collapse wasn't accidental. It was due to negligence by the mine's owners, who had prioritized profits over safety. With Elaine's guidance, we decided to hold a small vigil for the lost souls, acknowledging their untimely deaths and the injustice they had suffered. As we lit candles by the river's edge, reciting miners' old lullabies, a serene calm seemed to settle over the woods. Dawn found us weary but at peace. Grateful to Elaine and Derek for their help, we made our way back to the city, our car towed and repaired. That haunting adventure remains etched in my memory. It was a grim reminder that some tragedies, even ones buried deep in time, demand to be remembered and acknowledged. Story number 8. Night of Shadows, an eerie tale from Oahu's outskirts. 2008, a suburb outside of Honolulu. Time might fade memories, but that Halloween night stands stark in my mind, untouched and unaltered. With my school friends, Kai and Leilani, we set out for an evening drive, relishing the cool Pacific breeze and the promise of adventure. I was driving when, out of nowhere, an ethereal figure, with eyes as hollow as the night itself, appeared on the road. I swerved, narrowly missing the apparition, but the car grazed a banyan tree. With darkness enveloping the surroundings and the vehicle in no condition to move, we decided to seek shelter. Guided by the soft chirping of crickets and the distant gurgling of water, we stumbled upon an old log cabin near a mountain river. To our relief, the cabin wasn't deserted. The door was answered by Moana, a kind-hearted anthropologist, and her friend Lonnie, a local historian. Their warm welcome calmed our frayed nerves, but the night had more in store for us. As Moana tended to our injuries with a skilled hand, Lonnie shared tales of ancient Hawaiian spirits and legends. The area, she whispered, was believed to be the resting place of the Ohane, souls, of native warriors who had perished in a forgotten battle. As the hours ticked by, the legends turned real. Shadows moved with purpose outside the windows, ancient chants echoed through the woods, and spectral figures danced by the riverbank. The spirits of the past, it seemed, had awakened. Driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, Kai, with Lonnie's guidance, started investigating the historical roots of the haunting. Sifting through old manuscripts and tribal records, they unearthed a tale of betrayal, warriors ambushed and slain by rivals from a neighboring tribe, their spirits never finding peace. Realizing the importance of acknowledging and respecting the past, we, under Moana's direction, held a ceremony honoring the lost warriors, offering chants and gifts to appease their restless souls. Gradually, as dawn's light pierced the horizon, the paranormal activities waned. The spirits, it seemed, had been acknowledged and had found a semblance of peace. Expressing our gratitude to Moana and Lonnie, we left the cabin the next morning, the haunting melodies of the night still echoing in our ears. The outskirts of Honolulu, with its rich tapestry of history and legends, served us a haunting lesson that Halloween, respect the past, for it might just reach out from beyond the veil to remind you of its presence. Story number 9. The Forgotten Trails of Rock Creek, A Night to Remember. 2009, suburban Washington, D.C. Even after all these years, the crispness of that autumn evening remains fresh in my memory. It started as a simple Halloween escapade with my friends, Alex, Bella, and Chris. But by the end of it, our lives had changed forever. I was driving down a winding road, our laughter filling the air, when suddenly, a deer dashed in front of the car. Reacting instantly, I swerved, avoiding a collision, but the car hit a tree. The darkness of the night was looming, and with our car damaged, we decided to find a place to spend the night. Guided only by the faint shimmer of the moonlight, we stumbled upon an old log cabin nestled beside a gurgling mountain river. Our relief was palpable when we found the cabin inhabited. The owners, Mr. Gregory, a historian, and Mrs. Nora, an archivist, welcomed us warmly. While Mrs. Nora, with her gentle touch, treated our minor injuries, Mr. Gregory began to share tales of the land we were on. Centuries ago, it was a site of a violent conflict during the early days of colonization. Many had perished, their spirits believed to still haunt the grounds. As the wind howled outside, we began to hear soft whispers, saw shadows flit past the windows, and chilling apparitions roamed the nearby woods. The tales of hauntings turned out to be more real than we ever imagined. Curiosity gripped Chris, who, along with Mr. Gregory, decided to delve deeper into the history. Poring over old journals and maps, they pieced together a tragic tale. An old settlement had existed there, wiped out due to a mix of disease and conflict. Those who perished were never given proper burials, their souls forever restless. Wanting to help, we all, under Mrs. Nora's guidance, held a ceremony in the woods. We paid our respects, sang old hymns, and acknowledged the painful history of the land. Gradually, as the first light of dawn broke, the woods seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The ghosts, perhaps, found a momentary peace. The next morning, Mr. Gregory drove us back to town. We left the cabin behind, but the lessons and memories of that night stayed with us. The suburban woods near Washington, D.C., with their deep history and unresolved past, served as a stark reminder to tread gently and to remember that every place has stories yearning to be told, especially on a night like Halloween. Story number 10. The Shadows of Des Plaines, Memories from the Edge of Chicago. 2010, a suburb outside of Chicago. When the past refuses to rest, it has a peculiar way of haunting the present. That Halloween night, my friend Jamie and I embarked on a journey that took us right into the heart of such a tale. I was driving through the serene suburbs, the car's headlights barely piercing the thickening fog, when a swift-moving fox darted in front of us. I swerved instinctively, and the car skidded to an abrupt halt near the dense woods of Des Plaines. With the vehicle unfit to drive and darkness enveloping us, we decided to look for shelter. Guided only by the soft rustling of leaves and the distant sound of flowing water, we stumbled upon an aged log cabin, its time-worn walls seeming to hold a myriad of secrets. Our knocks were answered by a middle-aged couple, Robert, a local journalist, and Clara, a historian specializing in local lore. While Clara attended to our scrapes and bruises, Robert began to weave tales of the area, speaking of long-forgotten settlements, unrequited love, and an unexplained disaster that had left an entire community in mourning. As the night grew colder, and the winds began their mournful howls, the tales turned terrifyingly tangible. Ephemeral figures, dressed in period clothing, wandered the woods. Whispers of yesteryears filled the air, and soft sobs echoed in the wind. With Robert's investigative background and Clara's extensive knowledge, Jamie and I felt compelled to unearth the truth behind these apparitions. Hours of research revealed a tragic event from the 1800s. A flood had ravaged the then flourishing settlement, with many losing their lives. The disaster, a result of a dam failure, had been covered up by influential townsmen of the time. Feeling the weight of the unspoken grief and the injustice of the past, we, under Clara's guidance, organized a tribute for the departed souls, hoping to give them the acknowledgement they had been denied in life. As the first rays of dawn lit the horizon, the spectral activity began to wane. It felt as though a heavy burden had been lifted from the woods. The following morning, with heartfelt gratitude to Robert and Clara, Jamie and I left, the car repaired but our perspectives forever altered. The suburbs of Chicago, rich in history and stories, had given us a chilling lesson that Halloween, every place, no matter how ordinary it might seem, holds secrets, yearning to be uncovered and acknowledged. Story number 11. Echoes from the Past, a chilling night in Massachusetts. 2011, suburban Boston. The amber hues of fall had settled on the land, painting it with a myriad of colors. But as dusk approached, it brought with it an eerie pallor. I still remember that night, the images as vivid as if it were only yesterday. I was behind the wheel, with my friends, Samuel and Lydia, excitedly discussing our Halloween plans. However, our joyous chatter was brought to a terrifying halt when a pale figure dashed in front of the car, its hollow eyes staring into mine. I swerved, narrowly missing the apparition, but in the process, the car lurched off the road. With the vehicle inoperable and night's cloak descending upon us, we ventured into the woods, hoping to find refuge. An old log cabin, hidden away near a mountain river, became our sanctuary. However, as we approached, we felt an uncanny sense of being watched. The door was answered by Mr. Elliot, a retired archaeologist, and his wife, Mrs. Eliza, a writer with a keen interest in local legends. Their kindness saw us settled in swiftly, but as night deepened, so did our unease. The quiet of the night was pierced by whispers. Shadows danced on the walls, and the air grew cold with the presence of spectral entities. The haunting reality of Mrs. Eliza's tales of old tragedies and restless spirits became clear. With her guidance, and Mr. Elliot's knowledge of the area, we began unraveling the mysteries of the land. We discovered a heart-wrenching tale from the colonial era. A settlement once thrived where the cabin stood, but a deadly disease wiped it out, leaving a trail of grief and unburied dead. Wishing to bring some solace to the restless souls, we organized a small ceremony, acknowledging their suffering and offering our respect. Gradually, as dawn neared, the spectral activities subsided. A hush fell over the woods, signaling a temporary peace. As we departed the next day, the weight of history heavy on our hearts, we were forever changed. The forests surrounding Boston, with their tales of love, loss, and tragedy, had etched a lasting lesson in our minds. Even in the most unexpected places, the past lingers, waiting for its stories to be told. Story number 12. Unearthed Secrets, The Wraiths of Wissahickon Valley. 2012, suburban Philadelphia. I still get chills when I think about that night. The memories, though nearly a decade old, are as vivid as if it were yesterday. It was Halloween, and my friends, Nate, Laura, Jessica, and Jake, and I had decided to explore the outskirts of Philadelphia. I was driving, the road winding its way through the trees of Wissahickon Valley. Our chatter ceased when suddenly, a raccoon scurried in front of the car. The sudden break led to a collision with a tree, jolting us all. With night upon us and our vehicle rendered immobile, we ventured on foot, seeking refuge. The rustling of leaves guided us to an old log cabin, beautifully positioned near a murmuring river. The door was answered by a tall man, Mr. Henry, an anthropologist, and his wife, Mrs. Catherine, an avid collector of regional folk tales. They graciously offered us shelter. As the hours ticked by, an unsettling sensation crept in. We heard faint whispers, shadows flitted outside the windows, and chillingly, the silhouettes of people from another era roamed the nearby woods. Fueled by curiosity and the desire to understand, we teamed up with our hosts. Poring over old records and maps, we uncovered a grievous tale from the late 1700s. A village that once thrived there had been wiped out due to a combination of illness and a catastrophic landslide. The souls, restless and seeking closure, were trapped in an endless loop of their final moments. Wanting to honor them and hopefully bring some respite, we held a makeshift ceremony. With Mrs. Catherine's knowledge, we chanted age-old hymns and paid our respects, acknowledging their suffering. As dawn's first light pierced the horizon, the spectral sights and sounds gradually faded. It felt like the valley had exhaled a long-held breath. Grateful for the protection and the profound experience, we left the cabin with a newfound respect for the ground we tread upon. The historical tapestry of suburban Philadelphia, woven with tales of joy, love, loss, and tragedy, served as a stark reminder. Places, like people, hold onto memories, waiting for their stories to be retold and remembered. Story number 13. Lone Star Haunting, The Shadows of Cedar Creek. 2013, suburban Dallas. Even now, years later, every time I close my eyes, the events of that fateful Halloween night replay in my mind. The chilling winds, haunting sounds, and ghostly apparitions remain indelibly etched in my memories. I was on a road trip with my close friend, Melissa. The golden hues of Texan fall surrounded us. Yet, as the sun dipped, so did our spirits. Out of nowhere, a deer bounded across the road. My reflexes took over, causing a sharp swerve and, consequently, minor damage to the car. The enveloping darkness and unfamiliar terrain left us with one option: find shelter. Guided by the distant shimmer of the river, we stumbled upon an old log cabin. A sense of foreboding gripped us as we approached, but with no alternatives, we knocked. The door creaked open to reveal Mr. Allen, a historian deeply engrossed in the local lore, and his wife, Mrs. Claudia, a practicing herbalist. With genuine Southern hospitality, they offered us refuge. As the candlelight flickered and night deepened, the true nature of our sanctuary became evident. Ethereal voices whispered from the woods, and spectral shadows played hide and seek. The thick air of Halloween night was filled with tales of the departed. Drawn into our host's wealth of knowledge, we delved into the area's history, unearthing a tragedy from the late 1800s, where a devastating flood had claimed numerous lives. The souls, still seeking solace, roamed the woods, bound to the land that took them prematurely. Empathy drove us. With Mrs. Claudia's herbal expertise, we crafted protective charms and, under Mr. Allen's guidance, held a vigil, honoring the lost souls and praying for their release. The eerie calm that descended upon the woods at dawn was palpable, as though a weight had been lifted. Our short, unexpected stay had become a transformative experience. As we drove away the next morning, the sun casting long shadows over the Texan landscape, Melissa and I carried with us a tale that transcended time. A story of loss, of unfulfilled destinies, and ultimately, of redemption and peace. Story number 14. Desert Shadows, The Whispers of Pine Creek. 2014, suburb of Phoenix. The past never truly remains buried. My memory stands as a testament, forever echoing the chilling occurrences of that October night. I was with my school buddies, Daniel and Lily. Our spirits were high, Halloween was around the corner, and we were heading for a much-anticipated party. Yet, life had other plans. A misty apparition suddenly manifested, and our car swerved, barely avoiding it, resulting in minor damages. Night had fallen, and the looming Sonoran desert landscape cast unsettling shadows. In our search for shelter, we stumbled upon a cabin by a shimmering creek. The wild calls of the night were unsettling, but more so was the feeling that we weren't alone in the woods. Upon reaching the cabin, Mr. Henry, an archaeologist, and Ms. Rosa, a journalist documenting the region's mysteries, greeted us. Their kind offer for shelter was a beacon in our uncertain night. Sitting by the fireplace, Ms. Rosa shared tales of the area. About a century ago, a mining disaster occurred, trapping miners underground. Their restless spirits were rumored to haunt these woods. The atmosphere thickened as the night progressed. Ghastly figures appeared outside the cabin, casting long, spectral shadows. The mournful cries of the lost miners filled the desert air, a stark reminder of the tragedy that befell them. Driven by a mix of fear and determination, we, alongside our newfound friends, decided to get to the heart of the matter. Ms. Rosa's research indicated a forgotten memorial site for the miners nearby. Using tools from Mr. Henry's archaeological kit, we conducted an impromptu ritual, paying homage to the trapped souls and expressing our wishes for their peace. As dawn approached, the spectral activity receded. An eerie silence, indicating either a resounding success or a calm before another storm, blanketed the area. The sun that morning was more than a source of light, it was a symbol of hope and closure. As we headed back home, with the desert's vastness around us, we held within us a tale of darkness, of lost souls, and the power of acknowledgement and respect for the past. Story number 15. Whispers of the Lost Grove, San Diego's Hidden Horror. 2015, a San Diego suburb. That Halloween, the past's agony whispered through the woods, compelling us to bear witness. It's an event that will forever haunt my memory. I was driving with my friends, Anna, Mark, and Beth, down a dimly lit road, excited for the night's festivities. Out of nowhere, a wild deer darted in front of our car. The sharp turn I took avoided a fatal collision, but the damage rendered the vehicle immobile. The encroaching darkness and eerie silence compelled us to seek refuge. Guided only by the moon's dim glow, we discovered a secluded log cabin by a glistening river. Our relief was short-lived as the haunting howls and rustling of the forest animals escorted our every step. To our surprise, the cabin was not deserted. We were greeted by Joseph, an historian, and Claudia, a paranormal investigator. The duo had been researching a long-forgotten local tragedy, and the cabin served as their temporary base. The night grew darker and the temperature dropped. From the windows, we could see fleeting figures and shadows dancing around. The air was thick with tension, with every creak of the wood and gust of wind serving as a sinister reminder of the date, October 31st. Seated around a flickering lantern, Joseph began to narrate a tale. Decades ago, the nearby town had been wiped out due to a devastating landslide. Many had perished, unable to escape the fury of nature. The souls of the departed were believed to haunt these woods, crying out for recognition and solace. Intrigued and alarmed, we decided to join Claudia in a seance to communicate with the spirits. We formed a circle, holding hands, while Claudia chanted incantations. The atmosphere grew dense, and the temperature plummeted. Muffled voices whispered tales of anguish and pleading cries for acknowledgement. Through the seance, we realized the spirits sought a proper memorial. With Joseph's historical knowledge and Claudia's expertise, we marked a spot near the river, paying homage to those lost in the tragedy. By dawn, the forest's eerie aura had diminished, replaced by a serene calmness. We departed, forever changed, carrying with us the tale of the lost souls and their quest for peace. And as I recount this tale, I still feel the weight of that night, the chilling reminders of history's hidden horrors, and the profound realization of the spirit's lingering pain.